In the next 5 years, America's last Japanese neighborhoods will disappear forever. And if you've ever wondered what it looks like when an entire culture gets systematically erased from a city, you're about to witness it happening in real time across 4 communities that have survived everything from World War II internment to decades of discrimination, only to face their final destruction at the hands of modern gentrification. Right now, as you're watching this video, landlords are doubling rents on businesses that have served their communities for generations. Developers are bulldozing cultural landmarks to build luxury condos. And families who spent 80 years rebuilding what America once took away are packing up again, this time permanently. Only 4 recognized Japantowns remain in the entire United States, down from more than 40 vibrant communities that existed before World War II. These aren't just neighborhoods. They're the last living connections to a Japanese-American experience that shaped this country's identity. And they're dying. I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in each of these communities, from the one that's already gone to the one fighting the most desperate battle for survival. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this isn't just about Japanese Americans. This is about whether America still has room for cultures that don't generate maximum profit. Let's start with community number 4. And I'm warning you, this story will haunt you because it proves what happens when we do nothing. Community number 4, Chicago's complete cultural erasure. Chicago's Lakeview once had a thriving Japanese community. Notice I said had. Today, there's literally no trace that thousands of Japanese families ever called this place home. Meet Kenji Nakamura. He's 78 years old, and last month he flew from Los Angeles to Chicago on what he calls his ghost hunt. Kenji grew up in Lakeview in the 1950s, before his family was forced to relocate during the internment. When he returned after the war, his community was rebuilding, determined to reclaim their place in America. Kenji spent 3 days walking through Lakeview with old photographs, trying to match street corners to his childhood memories. He found nothing. Not a single Japanese restaurant, shop, cultural center, or even a historical marker acknowledging that his community ever existed. The historical documentation is devastating. Chicago's Japantown was completely absorbed through what researchers call assimilation pressure. Unlike other ethnic neighborhoods that maintained cultural identity while integrating into American life, Chicago's Japanese community was systematically dispersed and culturally erased. Kenji stood on the corner where his father's grocery store once served both Japanese families and curious American neighbors. Today it's a Starbucks inside a luxury high-rise. He told me the silence felt louder than any demolition. At least destruction leaves evidence that something once mattered. Chicago's complete erasure serves as a warning for what happens when communities don't organize to preserve their cultural identity. It's not just assimilation. It's cultural amnesia that benefits nobody except developers who prefer blank slates to complicated histories. Chicago vanished without a fight, but community number 3 is currently watching their battle being lost in real time. Community number 3, San Jose's financial strangulation. 4 iconic Japanese restaurants in San Jose's Japantown closed within 2 weeks of each other in September 2025. This isn't coincidence. This is systematic financial strangulation of an entire cultural district. Masa Tanaka's hands shake slightly when he talks about closing his ramen shop. For 30 years, Tanaka-san served authentic tonkatsu ramen to 3 generations of families. His regular customers included grandparents who taught their grandchildren to use chopsticks at his counter, young professionals grabbing lunch between meetings, and curious food lovers discovering Japanese comfort food. The numbers that killed Tanaka-san's dream are brutally simple. His rent increased from $4,500 to $12,000 monthly in January 2025. His average daily revenue stayed constant at $400. Even operating 7 days a week, his monthly income of $12,000 exactly matches rent, leaving $0 for ingredients, utilities, employee wages, or his own survival. But here's what made Tanaka-san's eyes well up with tears. It wasn't just the money. The city's regulatory burden made it impossible to adapt. When he tried to add delivery service, permitting took 6 months. When he applied for outdoor seating, the process required $8,000 in consulting fees and architectural plans. When he requested a small business grant, he discovered the application was only available in English and Spanish, not Japanese. The 2025 small business closure data reveals San Jose's Japanese district is experiencing what economists call death by 1,000 cuts. Individual regulations seem reasonable, but collectively, they create impossible barriers for family-owned businesses that operated successfully for decades. Town Pizza Company, another casualty, shuttered after 6 years because city red tape prevented them from expanding their simple pizza and beer concept. The owner described feeling like he was drowning in bureaucracy while competitors with deep pockets and legal teams thrived. Walk through San Jose's Japantown today, and you'll see for-lease signs written in both English and Japanese characters. A bilingual goodbye to businesses that once made this neighborhood feel like a living piece of Japan transplanted to California. Community organizers are launching emergency fundraising campaigns and pushing for regulatory reform that would give small cultural businesses fighting chances against corporate chains. Some restaurants are experimenting with cooperative ownership models and community-supported agriculture approaches to reduce individual financial pressure. But San Jose's businesses are hemorrhaging faster than community support can save them. And community number 2 faces an even deadlier enemy. Community number 2, San Francisco's heartbreaking goodbye. Japan Video closed forever in May 2025. If that name doesn't mean anything to you, you've never experienced what it feels like to lose a cultural institution that connected an entire community to their homeland. The Yamamoto family ran Japan Video for 40 years. Not just a video store, a cultural lifeline that imported Japanese films, anime, music, magazines, and books that you couldn't find anywhere else in America. For 4 decades, Japanese families, mixed-race children, and curious Americans came here to touch their cultural roots or discover something beautiful and foreign. I spoke with Mrs. Yamamoto the week before she turned off the lights for the final time. She described customers who drove 6 hours from Sacramento just to find a specific Japanese film for their elderly parents. College students who spent hours browsing manga they couldn't afford but needed to see. Children who grew up practicing Japanese by reading subtitles on Studio Ghibli movies their grandparents recommended. The financial reality was crushing. Rent increased 400% in 5 years while foot traffic declined as streaming services replaced physical media. But Mrs. Yamamoto's voice broke when she talked about the cultural impact. We weren't just selling videos, she said. We were keeping culture alive for people who felt invisible in America. The final week became an impromptu memorial. Regular customers brought flowers, shared memories, and purchased items they didn't need just to support a family that had supported their cultural identity for decades. Elderly customers cried openly, not just for lost convenience, but for the severing of their last direct connection to Japanese popular culture. San Francisco's Japantown is experiencing what urban planners call cultural gentrification, maintaining the aesthetic appearance of ethnic diversity while systematically replacing family-owned businesses with corporate establishments that offer sanitized, profitable versions of authentic culture. The neighborhood still hosts annual festivals and maintains some cultural organizations, but the daily lived experience of Japanese culture is evaporating. You can buy expensive, Japanese-inspired items at boutique shops, but you can't find a place where Japanese grandmothers gossip in their native language while their grandchildren play between the aisles. Community land trusts and small business preservation initiatives are emerging as potential solutions. Legal structures that prioritize cultural continuity over maximum profit. Some Japantown businesses are exploring cooperative ownership models that distribute financial risk across multiple families rather than placing impossible pressure on individual entrepreneurs. But despite these efforts, San Francisco is losing its Japanese soul one closed business at a time, and community number 1 is under completely unprecedented siege. But wait, before we continue, please subscribe and like to ensure that you never miss out on any of my essential stuff. With that said, let's continue. Community number 1, Los Angeles Little Tokyo's desperate final stand. $1 million. That's how much money the Los Angeles Japanese American community had to raise in September 2025 just to keep their cultural heart beating. This wasn't fundraising for expansion or improvement. This was emergency triage to prevent complete cultural death. Mrs. Sato has run her traditional Japanese restaurant in Little Tokyo for 25 years. Her gyoza recipe came from her grandmother in Hiroshima. Her miso soup technique was perfected through decades of serving homesick immigrants and curious Americans. For a quarter century, her small restaurant was a gathering place where Japanese salarymen grabbed authentic lunch. Mixed families celebrated children's birthdays, and food lovers discovered flavors that connected them to something larger than themselves. In September 2025, Mrs. Sato's rent jumped from $6,000 to $15,000 monthly. Her average monthly revenue, $8,000 on good months, $3,000 during slow periods. The math is impossible. Even if every customer paid double, she couldn't afford to stay open. But the rent increase wasn't random market forces, it was strategic. Luxury developers want Little Tokyo's valuable downtown real estate for high-rise condominiums and upscale retail that generates maximum profit per square foot. Traditional Japanese restaurants, family-owned gift shops, and community centers represent underutilized space in developer language. The visual transformation is heartbreaking and surreal. Walk down First Street today, and you'll see 40-story glass towers rising directly behind two-story buildings housing 60-year-old Japanese businesses. Modern luxury condos with $4,000 monthly rents cast shadows over shops where elderly Japanese Americans buy rice crackers and green tea for $12. The cultural whiplash is brutal. Residents of $3,500 per month studio apartments walk past restaurants where $8 buys a complete homemade meal prepared by someone's grandmother using recipes refined over generations. The economics don't just threaten businesses, they threaten the cultural ecosystem that makes neighborhood feel authentically Japanese rather than vaguely Asian-themed. The September 2025 emergency fundraising campaign revealed the depth of community desperation. Families who survived World War II internment, rebuilt their lives from nothing, and created thriving businesses over decades are being forced out by landlords who see culture as an obstacle to profit maximization. Mrs. Sato's eyes filled with tears when she described telling regular customers that she might close permanently. "These people are like family," she said. "Some customers have eaten here every week for 20 years. Their children grew up eating my food. Now I have to tell them goodbye because someone decided our culture doesn't generate enough money." The $1 million fund represents community solidarity under siege. Japanese American professionals, mixed-race families, and cultural allies contributing everything they can to preserve the last major Japanese neighborhood on the American mainland. But even $1 million only buys time, not permanent security, against developers with unlimited capital and political influence. Community organizers are pursuing legal strategies, including historic district designation, small business protection ordinances, and community land trust models that would prevent speculative eviction of culturally significant businesses. Some restaurants are experimenting with cooperative ownership structures and community-supported business models that distribute financial risk across multiple stakeholders. But here's what makes Little Tokyo's situation uniquely terrifying. This is America's largest, most established, most politically connected Japanese community, and they're still losing. If Little Tokyo can't survive gentrification, nowhere can. The hidden enemy revealed. This isn't accidental cultural decline. This is systematic economic cleansing that follows predictable patterns across American cities. Developers specifically target ethnic neighborhoods because cultural businesses typically operate with thin profit margins and limited political power, making them easy to displace for maximum profit development. The process is coldly efficient. First, identify neighborhoods with valuable real estate occupied by low-profit cultural businesses. Second, purchase surrounding properties and increase development pressure. Third, lobby city governments for zoning changes that favor high-density luxury development. Fourth, raise commercial rents beyond what family businesses can afford. Fifth, replace cultural establishments with chains and luxury retail that generate maximum revenue per square foot. Urban development studies show this pattern repeating across dozens of American ethnic neighborhoods. Italian, Jewish, Mexican, Chinese, and now Japanese communities systematically dissolved by economic forces that prioritize profit over cultural preservation. The strategies aren't hidden. They're openly discussed in real estate investment conferences as methods for maximizing underutilized urban assets. Cultural diversity becomes a marketing tool for luxury developments built on the graves of the communities they destroyed. What makes Japanese-American displacement particularly tragic is the historical parallel. These communities are being destroyed for the second time in 80 years, first by government internment, now by private economic warfare that achieves identical results through legal means. The World War II connection. More than 40 vibrant Japanese communities existed across America before World War II. Families had built businesses, purchased homes, established cultural institutions, and created thriving neighborhoods that balanced Japanese cultural preservation with American integration. Executive Order 9066 destroyed all of it in months. Families were forced to sell homes and businesses for pennies on the dollar, lost everything they had built over generations, and were imprisoned in desert camps for years while their neighborhoods were systematically pillaged and redistributed. When Japanese Americans returned after the war, they found their communities erased, their properties sold, their cultural institutions dismantled. The 4 Japantowns that exist today represent heroic rebuilding efforts by families who refused to let American government persecution permanently destroy their cultural identity. Now those same 4 communities face destruction again, not through government order, but through private economic pressure that achieves identical results. The cultural continuity that families spent 80 years rebuilding is being severed by landlords who view ethnic neighborhoods as underdeveloped real estate opportunities. The historical parallel is haunting. First-generation immigrants who survived internment camps are now watching their grandchildren forced out by rent increases that accomplish what racial hatred once achieved through legal discrimination. Mrs. Tanaka, 92 years old, survived both Heart Mountain internment camp and the rebuilding of San Francisco's Japantown. She told me that losing her community to economics feels worse than losing it to hatred, because at least when they hated us, they admitted what they were doing. The resistance movement. But some communities are fighting back with strategies that go beyond individual business survival to systemic cultural preservation. Community land trusts are emerging as powerful tools for preventing cultural displacement. Instead of individual families shouldering impossible rent burdens alone, entire neighborhoods organize cooperative ownership structures that prioritize cultural continuity over maximum profit. Several Japantown businesses are experimenting with models where community members collectively own commercial real estate and lease to cultural businesses at sustainable rates. Historic district designation provides legal protection against demolition and inappropriate development, though it requires extensive documentation and political advocacy that many immigrant communities lack resources to pursue. Little Tokyo's community is pursuing landmark status that would legally protect the aesthetic and cultural character of their neighborhood against luxury development pressure. Community-supported business models, inspired by community-supported agriculture, allow customers to purchase annual memberships that provide steady income for family restaurants and shops while guaranteeing access to cultural goods and services. Some Japanese businesses are successfully using this approach to reduce dependence on volatile daily sales and unpredictable rent increases. Political organizing around small business protection ordinances can create legal frameworks that prevent sudden commercial rent increases and provide dispute resolution mechanisms for cultural businesses facing displacement pressure. San Jose's Japanese community is lobbying for legislation that would require gradual rent increase schedules and cultural impact assessments for major development projects. Intergenerational wealth building within Japanese American families helps younger generation members purchase properties and businesses that might otherwise be lost to outside developers. Several Japantown families are using collective saving strategies to ensure cultural businesses stay in community hands across generations. Cultural documentation projects create permanent records of community history, business practices, and family stories that preserve cultural knowledge even if physical neighborhoods disappear. These efforts ensure that Japanese American contributions to American society remain visible and celebrated regardless of economic displacement. Cross-cultural coalition building with other ethnic communities facing similar displacement creates political power that individual neighborhoods lack alone. Japanese American organizations are partnering with Latino, Chinese, and African American community groups to advocate for comprehensive anti-gentrification policies that protect cultural diversity citywide. The choice we face. So here's the question that will define whether American cultural diversity survives the next decade. The same question that should be keeping every American awake at night who believes this country's strength comes from its multicultural heritage. Do we let pure economics erase entire cultures from American cities? Or do we decide that some things, cultural continuity, community identity, intergenerational connection, matter more than maximum profit extraction? The Japanese American experience represents every immigrant community's vulnerability to economic forces that view cultural difference as inefficiency to be eliminated. If we can't protect communities that survived World War II internment and rebuilt their lives from nothing, what does that say about America's commitment to the diversity we claim to celebrate? Which community story broke your heart the most? San Jose's financial strangulation, San Francisco's cultural goodbye, or Los Angeles's desperate final stand? And here's what I really want to know. If your neighborhood's cultural identity was disappearing, what would you actually do to save it? Because the truth is, this isn't just about Japanese Americans. This is about whether America still has space for communities that prioritize cultural preservation over profit maximization. Whether diversity means anything more than marketing language for luxury developments built on the graves of the cultures they destroyed. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know which solution gives you the most hope, and whether you think Americans will choose cultural preservation over economic efficiency when the choice becomes unavoidable. Because that choice is coming to a neighborhood near you sooner than you think.